Okay, so we're posting to the server. We're trying to log in, and it says that there's a 404. There's nobody listening to a login post on the server. So let's move over to the Java server and let's build that. So on the Java side, notice that the service that we have, the user service we have currently, the only thing that it really knows how to do is create a brand new user when they register, and they could also retrieve all the users, all the current users, right? So we did that last week. We need to now be able to answer the call to log in, right? So we're passing username, we're passing password, basically we're passing the credentials. And so, but it's very similar to what we did earlier, right? We passed credential, username and password. That's all we did here. But in this case, we were a new user, whereas over here, we want to find an already existing user. So let's copy this and say we want to now listen for a post to a login, right? And so we'll call this login. This is going to parse the credential, username, and password, and it's going to create an instance of this user object that's going to have the username and password that we need to look up. Yes, as opposed to save, we now have to look up this user by username and password. Okay. Well, notice that we have a repository here. We want a user's repository to find this user by the credentials. But if you look for this, you say dot. We'll see that there's nothing. There's a find all. Well, we could do that, right? We could retrieve all of them, yes, as a list, iterate through all of them here on the server, right? And when we find a match, we say, yes, this user exists. Just send it over. Send them over as a actual user. But that seems a little bit too expensive, right? Retrieve. If you have hundreds of users, this would be very, very inefficient, right? Load 100 users. Iterate to see which one is there, right, and then go back. Instead, what we'd like to be able to do is delegate this to the database. Hey, database, here's a username and password. Do a select star where username is equal to username and password, blah, 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 match. Yes? So we'd like to delegate this. Obviously, at the end of the day, the database is going to have to iterate over the content anyway, right? So there is an iteration. You can't get around it. Obviously, if you index it and whatnot, you can certainly improve the efficiency. But nevertheless, there is some iteration going around. Whether you do it here at the application level or you do it at the database level, there is some iteration going on. Yes? All right. So how do we do that? So we would like to use a finder method that would looks something like this: find user by credentials or something. Credentials. We don't have that, right? And we like to pass in the username and username from the user dot get username, right? Get username, and pass here user dot get password, that we are parsing from. We're parsing from the body. Yes, I'd like to do that, but there is no such function. We need to build it, right? We have find all. We have find by ID, by primary key, but we don't have the primary key because we don't know who you are, right? So we need to build these. All right, so let's do that. Let's go to the repository, and let's build that. All right, so we'd like to have here a function with that signature, public user find user by credential that takes as argument string username, and string password. Okay, so how do we implement that? Notice that this is an interface. Right? We don't actually code anything here, right? We only declare certain things. All right, so using JPA, this is somewhat easy. We say we can configure here what query do we want to implement here, right? So like we'll say this function, right, is tied to the following query, right, to the following query, and query is part of the JPA interface. Let's import that. There we go. And we can configure here what query that we want. We like something that looks like this. Select, so find me a user from, not the table user. Okay, this is not SQL. This is not SQL. This is JPQL. So it's Java's persistence query language. It looks very much like SQL. It wants to look very much like SQL, but it's object-oriented. Right? It's instead of using tables and fields, it uses classes and properties of those classes. So from the class user, right? Where the object user username matches the parameter. The parameter username. Whose parameter name? This parameter name, username, and whose user.password is equal to password. Okay? Makes sense? Yes?
Why do you have equals colon?
Right, so colon means that this is a placeholder, right? And I will feed you the value of username, right? So it's not hard-coded. I want to map it to the variables username and password down here, right? So these names don't necessarily have to match these. Okay, so this could be U and P. Oops, sorry. Stop this. Let me stop this. U and P, right? But we can map it. We can say, hey, these variables that are coming in as arguments, I want to map them to the parameters here called username and password. Okay? So this could be, we can say, crap, what is it? Param, is it? Yeah, param. Param, and the parameter's name is username. And what I'm saying here, map these variables, map them to the parameters that I declared in the query, password. So basically, grab the values of colon username. These match. These have to match. So this username matches with this username, and it's mapped to the string that comes in as an argument. Make sense? Everybody okay? All right. All right, excellent. So we have that. Let's go back to the user service. The user service is right here. Notice that now it does find the find user by credentials. Let's try it out. Let's try it out. So let's restart this. Okay, it didn't complain. Did it complain? Okay, it's up and running. Let's refresh our login, and let's try out www. So log in. Okay, there's login. Let's see what came back. Preview. All right, it did come back, right? Here's www. So it came back from the server, right? So the server did find it, and it retrieved it. Excellent. But it didn't navigate to profile. What happened there? Let's take a look at controller. We must have forgotten something. Here's our button, login. Our login controller went here. We clicked. So we then went here. We must have gone, why did you not? Oh, because I misspelled location. There we go. Let's try it out again. Let's go back. Let's refresh. Computers are always right. QQ, login, and still. href of undefined. Line control 30. Wait, what? Oh, I didn't refresh? Okay, there we go. Oftentimes the browser will cache, right, and it won't reload, so you'll need to reload the browser, like kill your cache. And I think you can do it when you you can do command, right, and you can say empty cache as with a hard reload, right, so to guarantee that you're reloading the very latest one. All right, so let's try it out. Here's www, log in. All right, and then it navigates to profile. Make sense? Everybody okay? All right, excellent. But now that we're at the profile, there's actually no way for the profile page to know who's currently logged in, even though the server came back, right? Notice that the profile page we navigated, and it's completely unaware of still who's logged in, right? There's no notion of session or maintaining any stateful information between one request and the next request, and that's a feature actually of the HTTP protocol, right? The HTTP protocol is a stateless protocol. There's no mechanism that allows you to maintain it. That's why we invented other mechanisms that would allow you, and we'll take a look at that next. All right, so let's look at how to handle session.